You've been waiting all week for that Saturday show. Tune in, see what happened, let your troubles go. Work real hard, now it's time to take it slow. Kick back and relax with that Saturday show.
My name is Greg Polk. I'm glad about the turnout. Very pleased by the number of people, the diversity of people, the age diversity. It really shows that people are enthusiastic about this International Day of Peace and this opportunity to come together to reinforce those messages of peace and human rights.
I'm Maureen Wright, and I'm a volunteer at the Peace and Justice Center. And I was very happy to see the turnout today. And I'm anxious to see the pictures because I think it's going to be good. Yes. So, thank you for being here. And I think that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Hello there. My name is Eileen Shaughnessy. I play with the band Eileen and the Inbetweens, and I'm a teacher and an organizer. And I'm really happy to be here today celebrating the International Day of Peace at the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice today.
Hi, my name is Reina Davis, and I'm a poet and a student at UNM. I'm super grateful to be here for the International Day of Peace, and I'm grateful for the work that the Peace and Justice Center and our community does for each other. So thank you.
Good morning, Albuquerque, and welcome to another episode of That Saturday Show, brought to you by the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice, your voice and your advocate in the struggle for social justice. We have an exciting lineup for you today, and we know that you will be informed and entertained. Highlights of things that have happened in the past week, a last call discussion about next week's elections, and music from Eileen and the Inbetweens. We're joined today, and we're going to be hearing from Dr. Ryan Warner, a psychologist who's devoting his time and efforts here in Albuquerque to well-being issues in these difficult and struggling times. Welcome, Dr. Warner.
Thank you. So glad to be here.
Glad to have you here, and we're going to be talking a little bit later on, all right?
Sounds good.
Question for the day. When will we see a Voting Rights Act passed in Congress? But before we go on, let me just get this off my chest. I am not delusional in thinking that Black people are a monolith when it comes to social values or politics. Nor do I labor under the illusion that this country means my people well. I'm very clear that any thinking person with an ounce of decency can recognize when certain events and decisions are harmful to the greater population of African Americans, and yes, many others as well. Take, for instance, the events that started 2021, January 6th, the attempted coup by the Confederate Party, formerly known as the Republicans, was not just a blatant attempt to overthrow a legitimate election in favor of one of the nation's biggest criminals in modern government history. It was a highly motivated action driven by raw hatred. Hatred of who, you might ask? Quite simply put, Black people, brown people. And they turned out in record numbers to reject the orange fascists last year. We saw the past 4 years, and let's be clear about this, actually the last 12 years when Obama came into office, we saw that U.S. citizenry, that crazed 1/3 or less of the population here, in particular, beginning to organize to ensure in every way possible that Black people and brown people would never come together again at the voting booth and do what they had to do, which was to make certain that people had a chance in this country. It started with the Tea Party in 2008, and it's gone on, and it's now this stop the steal madness, and it just keeps getting worse. As African Americans in America, we should never lose sight of the nation's determination to keep us away from economic independence and sustainability either. Remember Tulsa, Rosewood, Bronzeville, Haymarket riots, and many other instances where thriving Black communities were systematically destroyed by violence or gentrification, or a combination of both? Fast forward to the present day, and the threat to institutionalized racism has, in the small minds of the oppressors, become an even greater threat, as it is increasingly clear that the original colonizers and thieves who stole this land from its original occupants face a rapid certainty that they will soon be outnumbered. There are some leading voices in this town that we need to keep an eye on, and leading voices around the country. Remember names like Clarence Thomas and Condo Sleazy Rice and Tim Scott and others who are trying their best to sell us out. We're aware, and we got to keep doing what we're doing. To everyone who believes in freedom and justice, stay vigilant. Ryan Warner, glad to have you with us,
Glad to be here.
and welcome to That Saturday Show. So talk to us about what's got you moving with your psychology, with the work that you do as a psychologist here, because Albuquerque is certainly a challenging city with a lot of needs.
Definitely. So, for a quick background, I am a licensed psychologist, a researcher, a speaker, and consultant, and I'm passionate about assisting teams with creating a culture of inclusion to maximize their potential. I'm really passionate about diversity and inclusion and equity. I do a lot of work in regards to enhancing wellness within the workplace and also within various communities, and specifically historically marginalized communities. And, my work, a lot of it has been, within Albuquerque, but also nationally and internationally. I've been honored to, get opportunities on 6 out of 7 continents across the globe to be able to go within organizations and serve as a consultant and an expert, and be able to improve their workplace. And also through various outreach initiatives and my connections with the community, I've been able to do a lot of work here in Albuquerque as well in regards to those efforts. So that's something that's really close to my heart. These topics, as a Black man in today's society, I want to be able to help other individuals of color, be able to improve their well-being and not only in their work environment, but also within their community. So that's me, and that's the work that I do.
That's such a valuable labor of commitment, and it's so badly needed here. Albuquerque's looking at a lot of challenges. Those leading up to our election next week, for example, have really divided the city, and we've got people talking, at each other and instead of with one another and to one another, and it's created a lot of hard feelings. And beyond that, there's so much other rancor and division here that started with the George Floyd murders and the demonstrations that followed last year, and how people responded and lined up on both sides of the road to respond in their own different ways. So are you encountering any of that discussion or any of that frustration?
Oh, definitely. These issues are, embedded within the society and also, have a significant impact in the workplace as well. I do a lot of work when it comes to microaggressions and mitigating the impact of unconscious bias and discrimination, within the workplace. And, sometimes we try to separate our political affiliations and the beliefs we have and our background. We try to put that to the side when we go to work each and every day. But we know that's challenging, and that's not possible, right? We bring ourselves to our workplace, and we spend most of our lives at work, right? So it's important to be able to go to a place in which you feel included, in which you feel like your ideas and beliefs matter. And even though we may come with different backgrounds and different thoughts and different identities and cultures, it's important that we respect each other, and it's important that we are kind to each other, and that's ultimately enhances, performance in the workplace. It helps us feel more fulfilled. It helps us feel more included as well. We feel that all ideas and beliefs are respected.
Sometimes I'm driving down the street headed God knows where, and I may pull up behind a vehicle and I look and I see a right-wing bumper sticker, or I see the National Rifle Association sticker on the back window of the vehicle ahead of me, and I just want to, it just makes the hair stand up on my back, and I just want to get out and just yell at those people depending on how I was feeling that particular day.
Yeah.
And I know I can't do that, I shouldn't do that, I must not do that, and yet these people need to hear a message, is what I'm saying to myself. So I have to engage in some kind of really aggressive self-talk to bring myself down off that ledge. Do you encounter people that just want to strike out and be violent even?
Mm-hmm. Yes, especially it may not be physically violent,
Yeah.
but it can also be verbally violent and abusive, right? When I talk about microaggressions are subtle, covert forms of discrimination, right, directed towards marginalized populations. And oftentimes we look at microaggressions like little mosquito bites. You know, you get one mosquito bite, you know, it's kind of annoying, right, but you brush it off. But when you get one over and over and over again, it becomes impactful. You know, so violence can look differently, you know, and in the workplace, sometimes it's more subtle. You know, sometimes someone's not going to call you the N-word to your face, but they may do things, engage in certain behaviors that are discriminatory, you know, towards you based on your specific background, right? So that's where I come in and be able to improve, you know, workplaces, and also within my work in the community as well. So,
you know, I read about, hear about, you know, almost daily now, businesses, organizations, educational institutions, even city government, with offices of equity, inclusion, and diversity. And, you know, sometimes, you know, I just wonder what the institution's real commitment is to making these things, you know, making these programs, these offices, these new departments, you know, actually effective. And I know that you do a lot of work in that area. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I've had the privilege to work with small and large organizations, you know, to improve diversity, inclusion, and equity efforts. And oftentimes, especially after the George Floyd situation, a lot of companies say, hey, we need some type of diversity statement. We need to be able to value and celebrate diversity now, you know. And we know that even though before this event, there's been a lot of individuals, you know, of color who have experienced discrimination and have died in the hands of the police, right? But for some reason, this incident particularly got really everybody, you know, really riled up and, you know, excited about this work. And with that, sometimes, you know, I question the how authentic it is, you know, when individuals say, I want a diversity statement, I want to be able to do an audit to, you know, better understand, you know, the barriers and gaps, you know, in the workplace. So ultimately, you know, I start looking at systemically first. You know, what are the policies, what are the procedures, what are the practices in place that may perpetuate, you know, inequity? Do you notice individuals who identify as women, are they getting paid at a lower rate compared to men? Do individuals of color, you know, do they have less retention rates compared to other individuals, right? So looking at these data is important, you know, first, and it's bigger than just a training because I get a lot of requests when it comes to diversity trainings. But sometimes it's bigger than that, right? We have to be able to identify the gaps, the systemic issues in place, you know, be able to figure out what initiatives need to be put in place to mitigate those barriers. And then from there, we need to be able to take diversity, equity, inclusion, and have it embedded within the culture. So it's hard work, right? But it's very meaningful when you're able to help individuals of all backgrounds feel more included within the workplace.
Yeah. We've got about a minute left, and there's this burning question that I've gotten, and that is, we live in this community where this repeated reference to this being a tricultural state. And when they talk about triculture, they're talking about white folks, Native Americans, and Hispanics. And they always tend to leave us black folks out, you know, and that just exacerbates the post-traumatic slave disorder that we all operate under. And I was just wondering, you know, what do we need to do to make certain that we break down this barrier that's created by this tricultural notion and make certain that we are included where we need to be?
Yeah, so I have a couple ideas. You know, first, we have to advocate for ourselves, whether that be lobbying, whether that be, being able to convey our voice when it comes to voting, and being able to just express, our concerns, and be able to come together, to express our concerns is important.
Mm-hmm.
We know that we make more movement when we do it together. So it's important, to keep that in mind, that we can't do it alone. But if we're able to get the community together to spread this knowledge and awareness about these challenges, then that can maybe be the first step.
Stronger together.
Yes.
Ryan Warner, psychologist, frontline operator here, making a difference. Thank you so much for coming on That Saturday Show.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And that's good news. And speaking of good news, let's go to Hassani for some good news.
Thank you, and welcome to Good News News. I'm your correspondent, Hassani Olujimi, and I'm Gugu for Good News. The goal of this segment is to inspire and uplift you, the viewer, with nothing but good news. Our first story comes from our friends right here at KOB Channel 4. It features a teacher protecting a student from being bullied. Let's take a closer look, shall we?
Roa Anna Newsick, Cottonwood Classical Prep is a great school, but their son Amadip did have a little trouble when it came to bullies.
Yeah, we're nominating Mr. Johnson because we really felt like he went above and beyond in helping our son with some challenges he was facing at school.
The family says Brian Johnson wasn't even their son's teacher, but offered to help with the situation. They say Mr. Johnson gave their son advice on how to deal with a bully and started a club to help Amadip make friends.
He switched me to his advisory and to his class, and he helped me avoid the student who was being mean to me and bullying me.
I just did what I thought was needed, and I tried to help as much as I could, and thankfully there's been a lot of social growth in Amadip.
And like most teachers, he says he plans on spending the money on his students next school year. Paying it forward, Patrick Hayes, KOB4.
Wow, now isn't that good news? You know, bullying someone about their height is not a nice thing. It's time that we stop looking down on short people. I'm working here, okay? Well, if you don't like Lifesavers candies, I hope you like this one. Our next story comes from our good friends at somethinggood.com. Let's explore a little more.
When I see her not moving at all, I knew that it was something wrong.
Instincts of 10-year-old Ricky August Jr., who was swimming at his complex's pool Sunday after seeing a young girl seemingly lifeless at the bottom of it.
I knew that she was not just trying to float, so I had to just go down there and get her.
Going up for air, he then swam all the way down to get her.
I had just picked her up, put her over my shoulder, brought her to the stairs.
Little did he know his actions earned him this.
She's alive today because of what he did.
A surprise celebration from his family.
I can speak for all the family, both sides, that we are extremely proud of him.
They're not alone.
Hello, young man. I'm Vivian.
Nice to meet you.
There's a time and a place, and there's a reason sometimes we're put in that place.
Junior's actions inspired.
You don't have to be an adult to do something amazing.
It was vital to this little girl's survivability.
Making this possible. 5-year-old Egypt Bradley and her family met their hero.
What did you want to say to Junior?
Thank you.
Put his own life on the line to bring her up out of there, man.
Oh my God, I'm very thankful. Very. Like I was telling everybody, I love this boy. I love him like he mine.
This hero says,
I would like to be a leader to other kids because I think that it's important for other people to learn from what you do.
Wow, now isn't that good news? What did the Olympic-sized swimming pool say to the kiddie pool? I can't be your friend anymore. You're too shallow. Well, let's check in with our favorite sassy grandmother, Little Big Mama. What do you have in store for us today, lady?
Hey, Hassani, I just want to tell you about the other day I got a knock on my door from the police. He said, ma'am, your dogs have been chasing people up and down the street on bikes. I said, my dogs don't have bikes. Go take a time out. Bye, baby.
Well, as we always say, the best way to turn a frown upside down is to get Gugu for good news. I'm your correspondent, Hassani Olujimi, and I'll see you right here next time on That Saturday Show with more good news.
November 2nd, right around the corner, just 3 days away, in fact. And it's your time to vote. And so we've brought together a panel today, and we're going to kind of take a quick tour through some of the important races that are on the ballot. And if you haven't voted yet, maybe information you get here will help you. Now, we're going to talk about these. We're going to try to give you some facts, but at the same time, old political hacks like us, we're going to share some of our own opinions as well. So we're joined today by Steve Cabiedes and our show's director, Tom Dent. And let's just dive right into this and start with the mayor's race, Tom.
Okay, we're starting with the mayor's race, and early polling is showing that Mr. Keller may not have the majority to stop a runoff. The three candidates are Tim Keller, Eddie Aragon, and Sheriff Manny Gonzalez. Tim Keller has a lot of stuff to mop up, but he's put some good programs in place. Manny Aragon has not been the most truthful person in the world. Manny Gonzalez has not been the most truthful candidate in the world. And if you listen to Eddie Aragon's radio show, he's twice as bad as Rush Limbaugh.
Yeah, that's cutting it about right. By the way, on that KOB poll, it had him at 43%. They used some interesting methodology. The Albuquerque Journal poll put out by Brian Sandroff had Mayor Keller at 53%. And he is remarkably accurate with his polls. So the truth may lie somewhere in between those two numbers.
We'll take 51.
Well, basically, it's the people that need to be aware that there is an election coming up. You need to get out to the polls, especially if you don't want if you want to retain the current mayor. And people like the sheriff would like to get people from Legacy Church and Calvary and the mega churches out to the polls in droves, and they're pretty well organized about that.
Yeah, they are.
And that's something about municipal races is that there's usually a much lower turnout, and the lower the turnout is, the more someone who's older, conservative, and higher income will have a bigger sway on the results of the election. So if you don't want that to be the case, definitely turn out and vote.
Absolutely. So let's go on to the city council races, and there's a lot of excitement there. Let's start with District 5, where Cynthia, well, actually, let's go to District 1 first.
Well, this is all the odd districts are up for re-election this year.
Odd number districts.
Election this year. Yes.
Right. And so running for re-election is Lansena. And we like Lansena. We do. She's really been on top of her job, and I think that when you measure her against her opponent, there's just no choice there. Lansena.
And she's new, so she's a little bit less corrupted than other people on the council. Her opposition is Luis Sanchez, who kind of swallows the police union Crime Matters More dribble, saying that, we're losing police officers in droves. Well, I was on the Community Police Council, and we've known for close to 3 years that 100 to 120 cops were set for retirement right about now.
Yeah, and I'll tell you that when Lansena has been an ally to the community on many fronts, even before she was appointed as a city councilor. This is her first elective run. She's running against a guy named Sanchez, which is probably going to play on the former long-term incumbent Ken Sanchez thing, which gives me a lot of worry. But during when I had covered on one of my political videos about the anti-blackness of Trudy Jones and even Cynthia Borrego, Lansena during that whole session about the $1 million for black businesses in this city was right on, spot on. Protecting the community, not putting up with any of that BS. Much respect for her for this and many other things.
As we go to District 3, Clarissa Pena is running again, and her opposition has withdrawn. In District 5, like Steve was mentioning, Cynthia Borrego is running. So is Dan Lewis. We heard from him during the last mayoral election. We know his ties to Santolina and the mega churches and guns. There's also Philip Ray Ramirez, who looks like a pretty good choice. I don't know that much about him. Have you studied him, Jim?
I've looked at his platform and just delved a little bit into some of the stuff that he's done in the past. And I just have to say, we could do a lot worse than get behind Philip Ray Ramirez.
Right, and I'm glad that there's that third choice, because if it was just going to be Cynthia Borrego and Dan Lewis, I actually told the head of the Bernalillo County Democratic Party that if I lived in that district and those were my only two choices, I'd vote for Dan Lewis. You know why? Because I'd rather have an actual Republican than a Democrat who votes with the Republicans.
Yeah.
That, you know, I mean, why do I need a Democrat that does that? You know, who allies themselves with Trudy Jones and Bassan on nearly every single vote? Well, Tim Lewis is going to do that anyway.
Exactly.
So, Philip Ray Ramirez might be the person to look at in that
It's
district.
a strange district being right next to Rio Rancho.
Here's the other last thing real quick, which is last time, 4 years ago, she won that thing by a hair, both in the first run and in the runoff. And the entire Democratic Party, the city of Albuquerque, flooded in there and was phone calling and door knocking and busting their butt for her. The very first action she takes is to make Don Harris the president, and it only got worse from there. So she's made her own bed if she loses.
Yeah, in District 7, there's a whole bunch of people running. There's
my God,
Emil
6 candidates.
DeAngelis, there's Tammy Feeblecorn, Travis Kellerman, Laura Lee Robertson, and Andres Valdez.
And Mauro Montoya.
Yeah, and you like Mauro Montoya.
And I like Mauro Montoya. Just, you know, on a personal note, I've known Mauro Montoya now for almost 40 years. And he's a highly principled man. He's an honest guy. You know, he'll always speak his mind. And if he says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And so this race is wide open. There is no incumbent in this particular race. But I can tell you, for my money, if I was living in District 7, I'd be putting my money on and casting my vote for Mauro Montoya.
This might be the most interesting race going through the night on election night that may not be decided until later in the evening. And although I would say like the Democratic Party insiders are kind of backing Tammy Feeblecorn, I've also not necessarily heard like that she's the greatest thing since sliced cheese. So with that many candidates in the race, there is potential for, you know, an upset.
To get more information, you can pick up the voter guide at the Peace Center. Just pop on in and pick that up. And you were talking about uncontested races, and you were talking about Don Harris. He is not running again for District 9.
Thank goodness.
The candidates there are Renee Gout, Robert C. Grilly, and Byron K. Powdrell, and a lot of us know Byron.
Yeah, we know Byron from his radio station. He's got a low wattage radio station that he operates from his living room and apparently enjoys doing that. But he cranks out some really good music and used to throw some parties around town every now and then. But this is his second time around at running for the city councilor's job in District 9. And that's a red district.
And we don't have that much time left. We're moving on to school board elections. In District 3, the candidates are Jinx Baskerville.
Yay, Jinx.
She is a teacher and has been an assistant principal. She's a candidate we'd probably endorse. The other candidates are Ali Inenga, Lucas Gautier, who has made some very strange statements. He's echoed a lot of what the police union has been saying. Danielle Gonzalez is the other candidate. Steve, do you have any...
So there's some real interesting things going on here. For in a rare event, the governor and me are on the same page on who they would like in Jinx. I've talked to other school teachers I know, they like Jinx. She's got a lot of endorsements from the unions and other good organizations. Interestingly enough, Danielle Marie Gonzalez has on her literature has endorsements from Planned Parenthood, a bunch of different moms groups, including Moms Demand Action, some PACs, and Diane Denish, which actually tipped it for me to vote for Jinx Baskerville.
Right, exactly.
Danielle's been on many boards, and she's supposedly an expert on education policy. In District 5, the candidates are Emma Jones, Uche Ohiri, and Cristal Tapia. Do you know anything about District 5, Jim?
The only thing I know about District 5 is that Emma Jones just keeps jumping out at me as you know, the best choice out of those three. I don't know anything about Uche, and I don't know anything about Crystal.
So what I would say is Emma Jean Jones is the sort of the from the streets, our kind of community candidate. Uche Ohiri is kind of like the Democratic Party machine candidate, and Crystal Lane Tapia is one of those conservative-backed candidates that's running across the city.
And those are the ones we have to really be careful, don't get into the school board system and poison it. Our school system is already troubled enough. We don't need that kind of nonsense.
In District 6, the candidates are Arthur Carrasco, Isaiah Cortez, and Josefina Dominguez. Arthur has been on state and national boards. Josefina is a former teacher.
Right, and I think Josefina is the one that like sort of the teachers' unions and others are with.
Yeah.
Celia Cortez, by the way, is a write-in candidate, but
she is.
I don't know as much about this particular race, but I think Carrasco is maybe more the conservative candidate in this race.
And in District 7, the candidates are Nick Bevins, Julie Brenning, and Courtney Jackson.
Gotcha.
We know Nick Bevins. He's 25 years old, and he bills himself as the only person that's actually been to school in the 21st century.
Nick's a good guy. He really is. And he's so sincere in everything he sets out to do.
And he has a lot of guts. When he was running for originally for mayor before he withdrew, he came out and said to everybody, "I'm autistic, but I can get the job done."
Right, and Julie Brenning made a faux pas at the very beginning when she kind of asked Nick to get out of the race, not like 5 seconds after he had announced that he was running. I hope they've gotten over all of that. But either Nick or Julie would be great. Courtney is the conservative-backed candidate in that race.
Exactly.
And by the way, that's the one district where the conservative may still win in this county. So
that's unfortunate too. Yeah, we've got to do what we can to keep the conservatives out of the school system. That's poison.
Please get out and vote.
Right. I got one quick snippet. There's also the Ciudad Soil Conservation District that's having races. Zoe Economo is one of the incumbents running in a two-person race. I love Zoe. I've known her since we were both Jerry Brown delegates in 1992.
All right.
And there's another gentleman, a young gentleman, 20 years old, named Kalen Ashby Dreyer, taking on the incumbent James Stephen Glass. Kalen is 20 years old. He's a farmer, which soil conservation, hay, and he's also known as the gentleman who owned the drone that created the flying dildo that came by and harassed Manny Gonzalez.
Right.
So if that ain't reason enough to vote for him, I don't know what is.
Gentlemen, thank you so
Stop
much.
the stadium. Vote against the bond
stadium.
issue.
Vote no on the stadium issue. All right. That is a good wrap up. That's a lightning round, I can tell you that. Let's, that was absolutely wonderful. So, I tell you, this is going to be an exciting election. And like you said, Steve, low voter turnout, is always a factor that we have to push against. And so we're just hoping that we can get some higher numbers to get out there and vote the right way.
And just remember this, in sort of a converse way, when you have a low voter turnout, your vote is actually bigger than it is in a high voter turnout race. Your vote actually counts more in a way. So, like, if you want more influence, these are the elections to do it.
My wife and I have already voted.
Good, I voted too. Speaking of schools, our next interview comes from Arlen Nelson, who is the coordinator of equity, diversion, and inclusion at Albuquerque Public Schools, and it's a group called Kabila la Umoja. Let's hear from Arlen Nelson. You're watching That Saturday Show. I'm Jim Harvey, your host, and today we have with us the Honorable Arlen Nelson, who is the Equity and Engagement Coordinator for Albuquerque Public Schools. And in addition to that, and more to the subject that we're going to spend our time on today, is we're going to be talking about how he's facilitating Kabila la Umoja, which is an organization or a working group that has come together to improve the lot, if you will,
of Black children in the public school system. Arlen, welcome to That Saturday Show.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us more about Kabila la Umoja and what prompted this coming together of concerned Black students and teachers and parents to address some issues.
Okay. I'll tell you, even it goes to the origin of Kabila la Umoja, Council for African Americans. And it originally started off as 3 subcommittees that came out of our African American summits that we host out of the Equity Engagement Office in Albuquerque Public Schools. Back in 2018, they got a survey and a lot of community members voiced concern of not being able to have a Black voice. Kind of where's the information on being able to bring ethnic studies, other cultural enrichment, and also kind of discriminatory actions to kind of be addressed and held accountable within APS. And that started off as our African American Supports Committee, our African American Data Committee, and then our African American Curriculum Committee. And over the years, up until about 2000 and I want to say up to 2020, we were 3 separate councils who worked together and would meet through their co-leads like once a month, but for the most part, kind of work individually. And over time, some of the groups kind of dissolved, and all of them really dissolving into African American Supports Committee, where we had the people from the Curriculum Committee, people from Data, and we were like, well, why we didn't really like the idea of working separate, and we could really come more together, and we wanted to be more of a unionized front to be able to hold APS accountable, and also to even bring be a kind of a center to bring Black people and people within the diaspora to better understand what is going on with their kids within APS. And so that's where we decided to form a council. And this was started more of the fall of 2020. And around January to April of 2021, we finalized the Constitution. The other ways of where we plan on going about it, we also came up with our 8-point plan, which is kind of our call to action, similar to the 10-point plan of like the Black Panthers, of what we would like to see, what we like to work towards in partnership with our Equity and Engagement Office to achieve more equitable structures within APS to benefit not only just the idea of the tricultural minorities, but also have a better vision and scope of how to make it better for Black people and people within the diaspora.
I'm so glad you brought up the point about the notion of triculturalism, because it seems like we as Black people just continue to get left out. We get left out in the count, we get left out in the services, we get left out in education. And so for you all to come together and begin to address these kinds of issues and hold APS's feet to the fire is really, really not only much needed, but it's commendable. So what kinds of issues are you working on right now that you think are probably most pressing?
Well, as everybody would know, in kind of just the environment of APS since school has re-entered, it's kind of high tension and highly tense, and we're dealing with a lot of multiple fires. Honestly, it's honestly not one thing, because we have on one front kind of what's been going on, and some of the inequities that we had to address anyway. On top of some more new inequities due to COVID, and understanding, what now is a technical divide, and even most students being in the house for all of 2020, and now coming back in a new grade in 2021, and they're kind of maturity levels is not necessarily the same. So some teachers don't understand how to deal with that, and it kind of creates the whole school environment to be very tense. And then with the shooting that happened, with the passing of the student at Washington, it has made it to where the mistrust amongst community is even greater. So I've been really addressing how to bring community, or bring how to come to community, not even bring community to us. And also thinking about what can we do to make the school environment safe for not only for all of our students, because it's on all fronts that these students are not really feeling safe, and it's on all fronts that these students are kind of being put in environments where it can escalate quickly, and then also they're not used to experiencing the change of a teacher might be there 1 week and then the next week they're gone, or some of the people that they're used to at the elementary school level, you know, a fifth grader, all of the people that they would have been used to for the past, you know, 3 years when they were in class is now gone due to stress and them kind of hitting the brick wall in themselves of burnout. So burnout has been one of our main things to kind of deal with, both in students and even in staff, that we've been trying to see what can we do to kind of make people feel more comfortable.
So I talk a lot about the school to prison pipeline and the realities of this being a factor, you know, not only in APS, but in school systems around the country. But if we're talking about APS, what is the level of Black presence in the Albuquerque public school system? How many teachers and administrators, you know, are there that look like us?
Well, I can give you an example based off the data, and it's accessible if everybody went to SAPR, that's SAPR .org, I believe, and it probably has and it should take you directly to APS, and you'll be able to see the breakdown of employees percentages and even Black student percentages. And so we have 2.6% Black students in our district out of 80,000 students. And then out of employees, we have 2.6% Black employees, and that would be throughout the whole district, even leadership included. And then as for me, and this is one of the things that I've been trying to do also on my end through the African American supports title that I have, is see how we can kind of build more better connections within APS for our Black people that work there, because going from UNM, where we kind of had some network where you can understand where the Black faculty, where Black staff was, and coming to APS where it's kind of not a central space for that, or any kind of email or listserv, it creates kind of a problem. Because I mean, I work in City Center, and at the time when Cheryl was still working at APS, we were on the same floor, and I didn't know that we were on the same floor. So it is a divide, even understanding how many Black people are even in City Center, the district level, and then even to say how many Black people are within the district overall, and that would be even including some charter schools as well.
So if other people who don't look like us want to take advantage of that, it's to their advantage to keep you all divided and unaware of one another's presence.
Exactly. And that's one of the things that we've been trying to even do with Kabila, where we have principals and we have other teachers as well, and other APS staff that self-identify African American or part of the African diaspora, where they get to kind of go there and talk, and we can talk candidly about what are some of the things that we did not know beforehand, and then like what are better ways that we can move forward to kind of build some kind of network or listserv or some form that we can contact each other and understand what are some of our needs within, because that could be another form of organizing.
So as someone who is not a parent and not a teacher connected with the Albuquerque public school system, how would I get involved in Kabila to make some meaningful contribution to what's going on?
Well, one of the first things that we do have as a point of contact is my email, which is Arlen, ARLEN Nelson, NELSON at aps.edu. And you can send me an email saying that you're interested in wanting to attend the Kabila meeting, and I will send out when our meetings are public, because we have separate meetings where we have public meetings that are for non-members and non-officers to still be a part of it, learn about Kabila, but also be a part of the conversation that we are having with the districts. And then the other meetings that we have are our member meetings. And one of the easy ways to become a member that we have publicly is just to be able to submit a resume. And we don't discriminate. If you identify as African American, and even if you don't, we have some members that don't identify as African American and still members. And it's just more to see what expertise you have and how we can even help you, or vice versa, so we can kind of move forward and even execute in some of our 8-point plans. And that will be something that I can send out to in that interest email. I'll be able to send you back some of our information, such as our 8-point plans and some of the things we're talking about moving forward.
Great. Well, I'll be sure to post your email address on this broadcast as well, so people watching will be able to get in touch with you. This is really good. So we've got about 30 seconds left, and I'm hoping that you could take that time to just share with us something that's high on your priority list that you're working on.
Well, right now is actually we're working on the policy change for under the No Hair Discrimination in Schools Act, and then the Black Education Act. So we're looking at changing some of our discrimination policies, and we're looking for community feedback. So we're going to our community groups, such as Kabila and other groups involved with our office and other offices, to be able to meet with the board and kind of have that discussion to see what are our next steps to be able to change our policies and procedures to fit the Black Education Act and being more inclusive of the No Hair Discrimination Act, and changing our dress code policies.
Well, I just have to, I'm a gadfly, so I like to stir things up. Just how is the Black Education Act being received at APS?
Honestly, as open as possible. One of the things about the Black Education Act that's kind of a caveat is the Black Education Advisory Council. So it really doesn't move until that Black Education Advisory Council is kind of put together and moving too. So I do know Vicki Bannerman has been working on that, and that's more under her and at New Mexico Public Education Department, and she's over like the equity division. So I do know that is going to be moving forward in the next couple of months. So we shall see kind of how that Black Education Act advisory council kind of make their plans and give their advices to the districts and see how they move after that. But I really would say right now, everybody's kind of been open in it, but that's on the district level. I haven't gotten to see too much what's going on the school level, which I do know that's kind of where we get more of our people want to contest it, such as like even our anti-racism trainings and things like that. So
my hero, Arlen Nelson, my heroes, the Kabila la Umoja, I wish you all the best. Count me in, and we're going to keep this discussion going. And as things arise, please just get in touch with me, and we'll come back and we'll pick up more of this discussion. We just have to do that. Our kids are our future, to coin an old corny phrase, but it's true. And if we don't put the work in, then we don't have a future. Exactly. So my hat's off to you, and thank you so much for taking this time, and thank you so much for doing this important work. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Beneath I belong to.
Until the next time, it's time to say goodbye. When you out here in the streets, keep it real, 505. We love everybody, we just want to let you know. Thanks for tuning in to that Saturday show.